The Chicago Bulls might be on the verge of blowing things up, and a lot of rumors have linked the Boston Celtics to a couple of their players, including Alex Caruso. We'll be diving into that all on this edition of Celtics Digest. But guys, before we get into the video, if you haven't hit subscribe yet, hit subscribe down below. We're on the road to 2,500, 3,000 subscribers. You guys have been showing insane support, and if you love this daily Boston Celtics content, hit the subscribe button below. We got you covered. Isaac, let's jump straight into this, and there could be a trade coming for Alex Caruso, and as we heard, as Champagnie tweeted just yesterday, NBA teams are probing the availability of Bulls two-time All-Star Zach LaVine, and there's increased openness from both sides about exploring a trade. And with that on the horizon, a lot of people are saying if the Chicago Bulls are blowing it up, they could be moving some players, and there's been links between the Celtics and Alex Caruso before. Do you think the Celtics could try and take advantage of a Chicago Bulls blow-up by going after someone like an Alex Caruso?
I think so, Josh. I think that it would be a great addition piece. Alex Caruso brings championship experience, obviously from their arch rival, Lakers, but it's still championship experience regardless, and he could potentially become the second, like a previous Celtic, second Laker Celtic champion, which is not bad. He brings that defensive prowess and he brings that championship experience. He's a little older, but he's a playmaking point guard. He can play the traditional point guard off the bench, which is what the Celtics really need. Not necessarily need, but like the Celtics would like to have that.
Yeah, they would.
As a plus off the bench going deep into the playoff time.
Yeah, and you got guys like, get a guy like Jrue Holiday, who's already like one of the best defenders in the league. Same thing with Derrick White, and you're adding more. Like, how are other teams' guards are just going to be looking at the Celtics like they're marking that game on the calendar for a game where they're going to fake an injury. Like, they're not going to want to play against this kind of backcourt. And Alex Caruso, in his career, he's very solid playmaker, like you said, like 4 assists a game in 28 minutes. This year, not so much playmaking, but he's really stepping up his defense. Of course, last year he was an all-defensive selection. I mean, the Celtics have just all kinds of all-defense guard depth now, but also he's been linked to the Celtics before. And in a mailbag just the other day that I saw, someone asked, is Payton Pritchard trade eligible? Did the extension nullify till next year? Is there a poison pill, whatever? But they basically answered that Pritchard is trade eligible after his extension, but there is a poison pill essentially making it harder to move the salaries. But he said it's not impossible, but he said he would imagine there's a lot of bidders, so maybe that type of package like Payton Pritchard plus something else maybe wouldn't do it. And he said, yeah, maybe we'd like to see Lamar Stevens feed Dalano Banton get some more run instead. But I gotta ask you, Isaac, if I'm Chicago and I'm looking at blowing things up, like you said, Caruso's getting older every single year. And if the Celtics come in hey, we got Payton Pritchard on a pretty good deal, like $7 million per year, and we'll give you some solid draft compensation because we have 17,000 draft picks in the bank. If you're Chicago, I feel like you at least have to consider that.
If I'm Chicago, I would entertain anything what the Celtics say. Not even if it's only just draft picks only. They're in a position, the Celtics are in a great position to where they have a good championship window and they have enough draft picks and great bench players as assets to move for this. So if I'm Chicago, why not? Why not hear them out? There's nothing wrong with hearing out what they say because you're nowhere near a championship window. You're not contending with them. You're not even in the same division. I say, why not? Why not?
Yeah, that's very true. And again, Chicago's in such an interesting spot right now. All this hinges on whether or not Zach LaVine gets moved, whether or not DeMar DeRozan gets moved. And if they do, and you're Chicago, why would you even hold on to Alex Caruso? You make a great point in that, they should be entertaining anything because let's just assume LaVine gets moved and let's assume maybe DeRozan doesn't get moved too, but you might be moving on from him soon. You got a guy like Ayo Dosunmu. You got a guy like Kobe White. I mean, Kobe White's obviously not as young as Ayo, but these guys should be getting more and more running. Screw it, let's just develop these guys. Someone like an Alex Caruso and someone like a guy we'll get into in just a few minutes if you guys want to stick around for the other potential trade proposal. He doesn't really have a fit on that team. But even though he's getting older, Isaac, I know we talked a bit before the show about, is Alex Caruso one of those guys that might decline faster than we expect? But even if the Celtics championship window is now in this next 2-3 years before, Tatum's Supermax kicks in while you still have Porzingis under a decent contract, I mean, to me, I think that's kind of the perfect timeline, no? If Caruso is able to come in and even just for 2-3 years, he's a very good defender for the Celtics team.
Yeah, no, I think he's perfect in that regard. If the Celtics are thinking that way, Joe and Brad are thinking that way, perfect. Literally just a perfect addition. So I see why not they just don't jump the gun and see what happens, or at least send a fish offer. How you're selling a car, or send a feeler offer if you're on Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist. That's what the Celtics should do right now. Send a feeler offer to the Chicago and say hey, What would you want? Just to see. And if Chicago says something outrageous, like during the whole Dame trade between Miami and stuff, then just walk away.
Yeah.
walk away. But send the feeler. I'm for it. It'd be a great addition for that championship window for 2 years. And you draft somebody to mature and follow his lead in that process because you have the draft picks.
Yeah, exactly. You know, like when you said it, I was just picturing like, you know, you're scrolling through Facebook Marketplace. Hi, is this still available? Alex Caruso. And that's it. You know, you send it out, see what they say. But you're very right. It's a very interesting trade proposal nonetheless. But it's not the only one we got for you in this video. I want to talk about Andre Drummond as well. And look, I know a lot of you are probably like, what are you talking about? Andre, why would the Celtics go after? Like, why is Andre Drummond even getting talked about here? Well, I got an interesting thing. Here's a tweet. I don't know if you guys can see this very well. Apologies if you can't. But if you see near the bottom, you see Andre Drummond. Well, what is this? This is a list of players that fit into the Grant Williams traded player exception. Essentially, money the Celtics can take on basically for free. So in this case, if the Celtics were to trade for Andre Drummond, he would fit within that trade exception, and that could kind of make the money match without the Celtics having to make it match, of course, because the salary situation in Boston, this whole luxury tax second apron stuff gets a bit complicated. But if you can get a guy that fits within that traded player exception, it makes the cap a lot easier to deal with. And Isaac, Andre Drummond, like, while he is getting older, and while he's not at the production level he used to be, you can see this year, 6.5 points, 5.5 boards with 1.5 steals in only 13 minutes a game. He's always been one of the best rebounders in the league. At one point was a solid shot blocker, but he's still a decent defender. But I think the big thing is that he's a big body. And I feel like the Celtics right now, their backup bigs, you got Neemias Queta, who is shown some decent potential, right? But you got Luke Kornet, who maybe hasn't been as good as you wanted. You almost have Oshae Brissett playing a de facto backup 4 or 5. Someone like an Andre Drummond to come in and bang bodies when Al Horford maybe can't go a certain night or Porzingis is injured, I feel like could be a decent fit, especially because he fits within this TPE.
And you mentioned, we talked about this prior coming on and for the show. He fits. I think he's, in my opinion, I think he'd be a more efficient use than in comparison to Blake Griffin. You got a good body, and right now your championship goal is you got to win the East. You got to have someone as an extra body to help Al Horford when he's getting a little tired. And you're going against bigger teams such as like Denver. Denver has what makes Denver such a strong front court to be against, and why the Celtics got Kristaps and why they got who they have as far as their front court is they have an effective front court with Aaron Gordon and Jokic. You get Drummond, he can guard those guys, give a couple fouls. You get 6 fouls in the league.
Oh, he'll get them.
He can give you 3 to at least slow the game down for those bigger teams like the Giannis's, like the Bucks, the Heat, and Denver, especially in that championship window. Drummond, why not? Drummond, why not might be the phrase of today's show. The Celtics have no reason not to entertain anything, especially with Andre Drummond, especially the competition that they go against with size. A big front court does matter right now.
Yeah, for sure. And Drummond has obviously never been the pinnacle of defensive IQ or anything. But again, he's a big body, and that's kind of what the Celtics want, right? We saw Griffin use in that exact role last year. When Al Horford maybe had to sit out in the back-to-back, you just put Blake Griffin in, he would bang bodies, he'd fall to the floor, he'd get you like 6 points, 4 rebounds, and guard the opposing center, you know, when Robert Williams couldn't, and it was what it was. But now coming into this year, Blake Griffin's not there anymore. Al Horford's only getting older. And while Kristaps is solid, he's not the guy you want banging against the big men every single night. And especially, like you said, I think the Bucks are a great example, Isaac, because it's a team we'll see a lot this year. And it's a team that we'll certainly see in the playoffs. So, I guess you never know what happens in the playoffs. But it's a team the Celtics will almost certainly see more than once the rest of the way through. And when they have a team that has the likes of Brook Lopez, who can stretch the floor like crazy, who's going to pull your center out of the paint, and then you still have to have someone else who guards Giannis. I mean, look, Al Horford was kind of the de facto Giannis stopper when the Celtics played him. And while Andre Drummond is definitely not the quickest-footed guy, he is decently athletic, and you got to think he'd frustrate these guys, or maybe he's the guy you stick on Brook Lopez, and maybe you put Kristaps on Giannis or something. I think it just gives you some more options, and that kind of veteran presence as well, where Drummond, I mean, clearly he's accepted his bench role at this stage of his career, and I don't know, do you think, like, I know you mentioned the Denver thing, but I think against the Bucks especially, having that versatility, I think, is a good word, that Andre Drummond can bring you to try different big man rotations can be very helpful.
Yes, and speaking with the Bucks, I think that's even a better option because, you know, Drummond brings that versatility. You have more options. And playing basketball, you love to have options. Like, You can put Kristaps on Giannis. You can put them on Brooks. You want to have those options when you're going against your Eastern Conference rivals. So Drummond does add that to that. Now, I mean, we're only saying this on paper. Now, let's say they get him, and it doesn't look like it's a good option. You got to go back to what you have, Luke Kornet and everybody else on the bench. Okay, cool. But you like to have that option. I'm all about having those options, and I think Drummond does bring an additional piece for options like that when you got to go against the Bucks. That's definitely going to be a big one right there.
Yeah, 100%. And again, he's not going to cost that much. I mean, even at his like peak, right? He didn't cost much to trade for. And now on a Chicago team who, again, similar case to Caruso, if they go rebuild, they have zero reason to keep him. Because even if they keep him, all right, Andre, go put up your stats. We'll try and sell you to a contender. It's not going to matter. No one's going to overpay for Andre Drummond at this point. So I think he'll be a cheap get. He fits within the TPE, and he kind of gives that decent backup big role the Celtics want. So let us know down below. What do you think of these trades? Alex Caruso, Andre Drummond, are we crazy? I don't think we're crazy. I don't think the Celtics would trade for Andre Drummond for various other reasons, but just from a pure basketball perspective, it might make sense. But we'd love to hear from you down below in the comments. But that'll do it for this episode of Celtics Digest. If you enjoyed, leave a like, comment, subscribe to the channel. We are on the road to 3,000 subs, and we really appreciate your support. I'm your host, Josh Gosse, my co-host, Isaac. We'll catch you in the next one.